Welcome back, everyone. Next, we have Pulsar Helium Inc. It trades on the TSXV under the symbol PLSR, and its portfolio consists of the Topaz Helium project in Minnesota, in the United States, and the Tunu Helium project in Greenland. Pulsar is the first mover in both locations, with primary helium occurrences not associated with production of hydrocarbons identified at each. Please welcome President and CEO Thomas Abraham James. Welcome, Thomas. How are you today?
Anna, lovely to be here. Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and hello to everyone in the audience.
All right, the floor is yours, Thomas. Call me back when you're ready for questions.
Will do. Thank you, Anna. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so Pulsar Helium, as the name suggests, we are a dedicated helium company, explorer and developer of primary helium assets. Now that you've all had a chance to read the legals, we'll go into our mission statement here, really, or a bit of a summary about what is our business and what do we hope to achieve. And that is that helium is the lesser known commodity, let's say. I think the first thing that we all think of is party balloons, and typically doesn't go much beyond that. But it really is a critical material for the fabrication of, particularly in the tech industry, things that we use on a daily basis. This computer that I'm talking to you via couldn't have it without helium, which is for the fabrication of semiconductors. Electric vehicles, so the battery testing, you need helium for that. For fiber optic cables, you need helium. So for more than a decade, helium demand has been throttled by supply. So there has been a supply deficit for a decade now. And we as a company, Pulsar, exists to change that. So with our projects, I'm going to focus mostly on our project in the USA, which is referred to as Topaz. It's in the state of Minnesota. And why is it so significant is that it has been drilled. So it's probably worth mentioning that helium is a gas. So it's you get from the ground. It's not something which is synthetically manufactured. It occurs naturally in nature, but it's extremely rare. So with most of the industrial gases that we use, we extract them from the air that we breathe. But with the helium, just like the balloon story, it's so light and buoyant that it wants to escape our atmosphere as soon as it gets out of the ground. So what we do is we look at concentrations of helium that are still trapped in the ground, held there by impermeable layers, and then extract that gas out before it's had a chance to leak out into the atmosphere. But with this project that we have, it's been drilled, and the raw gas there in the ground, 10.5% helium, which makes it the second highest helium discovery in North American history. Now, why is 10.5% helium? What does that mean? Well, anything which is 0.3% helium or greater is considered to be of economic interest, that it could be viable for a production scenario. So to have 10.5% helium, it's almost unheard of, to be quite frank. You look at other companies out there, say me with 0.5% helium, or maybe up to 5% helium, which would be considered extremely high grade. But for 10.5%, it really is an asset they're extremely happy to have in the portfolio. Here we are with our company. So as Anna kindly said, we're listed on TSXV in Canada. We actually only just listed via IPO in August of this year. In fact, at the time of our listing, we were the only IPO to have occurred on the TSXV thus far for the year 2023. So myself and the team like to think that we must be doing something right. So we have there, our market capitalization. This is based on data from close of business yesterday. So we're valued at just over 18 million Canadian dollars. Share price of 24.5 cents Canadian. It's probably worth mentioning that with the shareholder base is that was just under 50%, so 48% ownership is the board of directors and management. So we have significant skin in the game, a vested interest for this to be successful. And to the extent that we believe in it so much that with us, our shares are escrowed for an 18-month period. So you won't see any trades from a very large block of shares in the company. I'm joined. So myself, Thomas, I'm a geologist by background, but I've been in the corporate world now for a little while. But perhaps more importantly, I've been in the helium industry now for a decade, which is considering that helium exploration is quite new. So we've been there almost from the beginning. Our chairman, Neil Herbert, he too has been involved in the helium industry for a number of years, but he's been involved ultimately in resources and I guess the more quirky commodities, not so much your mainstream commodities, but ones like helium, lithium, uranium. So he's certainly got an eye for the more bespoke elements out there. We've got John Ferrier, who's got a background from oil and gas production. So he brings that skill set to the table. We've got Stuart Crow. So he's been involved in lithium companies, has been very successful with financing there, particularly in North America. And we've got Doris, who's just joined our board as well. And she's based in Vancouver and helps us with our corporate affairs. Moving on. The advantages. So there's not that many helium exploration and development companies out there. In fact, the major producers of helium are in fact hydrocarbon companies. So 95%, probably more, of the world's helium is as a byproduct of natural gas production, of methane. And then with that, there's a small credit of helium. What we do is we look for the primary helium, where helium is the primary economic driver, and you do not have the production of hydrocarbons. So you could also look at that as being a greener version of, not reliant on a polluting commodity. So for us as Pulsar, our competitive advantages that we see is that a discovery has been made at our project in Minnesota, and that we're now drilling an appraisal well, which is occurring in February. I'll go into more detail later about what that means. And the seismic survey just really images up what we're seeing at depth there under the ground in 3 dimensions. We've just released the results of our seismic survey, so I'll be very happy to talk about those in more detail shortly. The USA is the world's largest consumer of helium, and its production is in rapid decline. So really, we're in the right place, that's for sure. It's a very valuable product. So let's say natural gas per unit, so a unit being 1,000 cubic feet, is roughly about $4, $5 per 1,000 cubic feet. For helium, you're looking at $600, $1,000 plus dollars. It is extremely valuable. The team I've mentioned, and yes, helium being the economic driver. Now, a little bit about pricing. Because it's a commodity which has been only there available in long-term offtake agreements, which are confidential, the pricing availability has not been great. But the data we do have, which is the white points on the plot, is from the United States Geological Survey. So each year they do a helium analysis globally with pricing trends and consumption. So we have that data there. But then we start to see a bit of a breakout, and we start to see new data points. And this is private industry. So the US government was the biggest retailer of helium. That's now changed with the large helium reserve dwindling in size and now up for sale. So it's being privatized, what is remaining. And what's that's created is a new industry for helium explorers and developers. And what we see is they have to announce their pricing because they're publicly traded companies. So what we're seeing is, we look at Air Products, a price there for liquid helium in excess of $1,000 per 1,000 cubic feet. And then for Royal Helium, in excess of $600 for gaseous helium. So incredibly lucrative, and the price has gone up significantly in the past decade. And it doesn't look like it's going to show any sign of slowing down, to be honest. Now, what's the size of the market? Now, a lot of these numbers are going to be quite sort of meaningless, but it's I'll try my best to explain. So with the current demand, so 2023, it's anticipated this year we'll be using 6.1 billion cubic feet of helium. Now, if we say take a pricing point of $750, that values the crude helium market upstream at about $4.6 billion this year. That's projected to grow up to 2030. The forecast is that that will go up, say, roughly 30%, up to that 6.1 billion as the demand increases. But importantly, demand is constrained by supply. So certainly more of it would be used if it was available. And one of the biggest reasons for its lack of availability is, as I alluded to earlier, is the decline of supply in the USA. And really the reason behind this is twofold. So one is the US Federal Helium Reserve, which is a standalone reservoir of helium. That's being depleted, it's being tapped, there isn't so much left, and what is left is being privatized. So that takes out probably the most stable, reliable source of helium in the world off the market. The other thing is that where it's produced as a byproduct of natural gas, it's in aging fields, so they're not producing as much as they used to. Uses, so as I said earlier, it's all about tech mostly. So semiconductor manufacturing is a major one. Spacecraft. So when we see one of Elon Musk's rockets there ready to take off, and you've got the gas coming out the side of it on the launch pad, there's quite a good chance that's helium boiling. So it's used as a pressure purge agent. So as a rocket consumes fuel, you use the helium to maintain pressure in the tank. Fiber optic cable manufacturing, hard drive atmosphere, deep sea diving, leak detection, particularly for things like, say, EV batteries, things where hairline, tiny cracks need to be detected. It's very important. MRI scanners is probably the single biggest use of helium. So if you're unfortunate enough to have an MRI, which sadly I have been, not the nicest experience, but when you go in there, the superconducting magnet, the copper wire, it's bathed in liquid helium or immersed in liquid helium, and that drops the temperature and allows the magnet to superconduct. A new one is modular helium reactors. So the new generation of helium reactors out there use liquid helium as their coolant. So a lot of unique and uses that we can't substitute helium for. I mean, if you wanted to use hydrogen, perhaps, then you've got something very combustible, and nobody really wants that, whereas helium is inert. It is not something which is going to blow up. Now we move on to our portfolio. So we do have two projects. So one is Topaz, which will be the focus of today's talk, in Minnesota, up by the Great Lakes there. And then Tunu, which is on the east coast of Greenland. Two distinct projects for two distinct markets. Obviously Topaz for North America, primarily the USA, and then Tunu for the European Union, where helium is listed as a critical raw material. So we'll zoom in now on Topaz. These images here give quite a good idea of what the place is like. So Duluth in northern Minnesota, for those of you who have not been there, recommend it. It's a lovely city, right on Lake Superior. With a rich history there of the resource industry. It's a major logistical hub for North America's largest iron ore mines, of which our project is right next door to. And the picture on the right-hand side there is a picture of what it looks like on site. So it's, whilst it looks somewhat remote, next to some very serious infrastructure and large extraction operations. So for our project, high impact news flow. So the first one is the seismic survey. So this is the one where we just received the data for that the other day. So we only put that out on Tuesday, and extremely exciting results there. New lease applications. So with this project in Minnesota, we're the first mover there. So it's a new discovery, brand new. And so the more that we learn, the more that we want to increase our license area, consolidate our position, that first mover advantage of taking out all the key areas of interest. We've then got the appraisal well that's there as well. So that one is drilling next to the discovery, and by next to, I mean really within sort of 30 feet of the original discovery. And the purpose of that is to confirm the discovery and get further information to find out how big is this helium occurrence and what kind of production scenario may it entertain, how big could that be. Then we go into the resource reserve calculation, which is what I just said. How big is the prize? And we use an independent company to do that. And in fact, the one that we've been using to date is a group called Brule, engineering firm there. oil and gas background, and we use their Denver and Calgary offices. So the project location. So here we are in northern Minnesota, and the orange diamond there signifies where our project is, Topaz. And you can see it's right next to existing infrastructure. So we have the road network there, so it's certainly not difficult to get onto that. It's worth noting that helium is transported by a truck. And as to say, if you were having liquid helium production, to be one of the largest producers, if not the world's largest producer of helium, it might be 4 to 6 containers per day of helium. So it's not huge. The footprint is not big, and by no means is it going to overrun the road infrastructure. You've got the iron ore mines here, so just south of Babbitt. North Shore mining operation is right next to our project. There's existing power, majority of which comes from hydro. Nearby there to access to the Great Lakes as well. And once again, with all that history of mining and the associated infrastructure, it really is a good place. So we're there, and now we get onto the discovery itself. So we were, at the time of the discovery, were actually not present. So what happened was, it's quite a fun story, I enjoy this one, is that a company was there exploring for nickel and platinum. And they were drilling down to a target of theirs when they reached just short of 1,800 feet. And most unexpectedly, the drill rig encountered gas. But not just any gas, it was gas under high pressure. And so what it did was, inside that drill string at 1,800 feet, there was about 10 feet worth of rock inside the drill string that shot out like a projectile and came out from that depth all the way up to surface, and then flew out and probably ended up in Iowa somewhere. So the gas pushed it out and off it went. So from that, we certainly know that it's under considerable pressure. Everybody at the rig at the time was very concerned that the gas would be combustible. They didn't know what the gas was. So what they did on the second day was that it was vented samples and sent those off to 2 different laboratories. And they both came back and confirmed that 10.5% helium. Now, back then, 2011, it was really just at the time when helium shortage was, being talked about. But that company was not, their business was not helium, so they walked away, and that's when we got involved. Now, this is really the first time that, I guess, in the public domain, helium in Minnesota is being talked about. In fact, any gas, because there's no real history of gas exploration in Minnesota, but now we can certainly safely say that it's definitely the place to go for helium. So anyway, this is what a drill rig looks like. So we'll have that coming out in February, but we certainly will not be doing fracking. That is something that's not required and not our business. So I'd like to highlight that. And all permits are in place, and we have the mineral rights, the licenses to proceed as well. Now, here's the seismic survey. This is fascinating. So I know there's a lot of color to take in here, but basically what this is telling us is this is the drill hole here at surface going down, the red one here. At the bottom of the hole, that's where it hit the gas, 10.5% helium under intense pressure. And then really we didn't know much else until we had this seismic survey. So this just released earlier this week. And what it shows is, and make it relatively straightforward, is that the red here, the red and the yellow and the orange colors, those warmer colors, is where the seismic waves, they can go through quite rapidly. So what that means is you've got quite a competent material, something which is quite robust, and it allows those seismic waves to fly through them at quite high velocity. When you get then to the gray into the green, something's happened there where the rock is either changed or it's a different lithology or something, but those seismic waves can't travel as quickly. It's not as consistent. So a major change is represented. So what we find is that the base of the drill hole, which is what we're ecstatic about, is that it matches up perfectly, more or less, with the top of this anomaly, where you get the velocity step change. And that is what we'd all hoped that we would see. But just truly the correlation being 1-to-1 is perfect, but then also seeing the size of it, it's larger than we thought. So we've got scale bars down the bottom there, 1 kilometer and a mile for reference. But that green unit, it's roughly about, say, sort of 600 meters deep in the area where it's drilled. And then as we step further away off to the west, then it extends to up to over a kilometer thickness. So it's within that zone. That's where that's where the helium reservoirs are, within that. So what it's really done is it's tightened up exactly what our target area is, where we need to look, and potentially how big this helium prize can be. And keeping in mind it's such high grade that we don't actually need to find that much gas to substantiate a decent sized helium production operation. So incredibly exciting, this one. And also we know that this red orange is we know the rock type that's there, troctolite. Okay, I won't bore you with what that is, but it's a bit like, say, your kitchen bench top. If you're lucky enough to have a granite bench top, it's a rock that looks a bit like that. Something which is incredibly difficult for gas to pass through. It's more or less impermeable, so that makes it a wonderful seal. We know how buoyant helium is. We know how it wants to leak through everything, but having that as a sealing unit is a real big plus. And to have it modeled there as being continuous above this green zone is just wonderful. We now switch across, and what we see here is we're now looking in plan view. So this is a sort of bird's eye looking down from the sky down into the ground. But this is at a depth of 950 meters. Apologies for those who operate imperial and then metric. I switch between the two. I'm sorry. But this is 950 meters depth slice. And what it's really showing is that the red is where the discovery hole was made. And then the green is the rest of the area of interest. And we can see that off to the west, the northwest, the southwest, it's just limited by the extent of the survey. That the area of interest persists further afield in areas that we haven't even surveyed yet. So we've got a lot of blue sky to go off and do this additional seismic surveys there. Then also to the north in the center, it goes off in that direction as well. So it really does highlight that this is not just potentially some isolated occurrence of some, incredibly high grade of helium, but it looks like we're looking at something which is a regional play here, something which has got scale and the potential to be a significant sized resource. So to start with, we go and replicate that drill hole that was already drilled. And then after that, based on success, we then start to look at the economics. And then for the growth of the company, for then making larger resources, it appears that we have plenty of ground that we can go off to then to do those incremental updates to what we already have. Our project in Greenland, I'll touch on this one quite lightly, but first mover there, east coast of Greenland. This is a project that we generated internally. We had a theory that the geology was correct in Greenland for primary helium occurrences. We tested that theory in 2021, and yes, we identified that it is a primary helium system, one of very few helium systems in Greenland and in Europe, in fact. So Europe imports about 95% of its helium, 98, I think. So really, it's heavily reliant on imports from Qatar, Algeria, some from the USA. So to have a domestic source of helium is why it's now been put on the critical list. So with this one, it's at an earlier stage than Topaz because it has not been drilled. But the intention there is to get this one moving along. Whilst the focus is primarily on Topaz because it is more advanced, and we think we can get that one to production quicker. But in the meantime, get this one moving, and with the objective being next year is to get a maiden resource calculation for this project and build up towards the drill program. And this is it. This is quite nice work. I mean, this is how we test the helium. This is a hot spring in this photo. My friend and colleague, Dr. Peter Barry from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute here. And basically the bubbles come up from depth. You grab the bubbles, trap them in the tube and send them off to a lab and get the gas analyzed, which is a very cost-effective way and actually extremely reliable data to find out what gas is at depth. Now, just quickly, how do you get from helium? So really, this is the sort of the roadmap, so to speak. that we use. The first one is you've got to identify where you want to be, of course. The second one is obtaining a lease. So that's from the government typically, or from a private mineral right holder. This could be very challenging because helium is such a new commodity to explore for. So not every jurisdiction has licensing in place, but certainly with our projects, we've got those. Data acquisition, so this could be from sampling those gas bubbles or getting geophysical data and so on. This is the stage that a project in Greenland, Tunu, is at. The next one is identify a resource to have sufficient data to give to a third party who will tell you what the likelihood is of how much gas is present in the ground there. Then go off and drill, and this is where our Topaz project in Minnesota is. The exploration drill's been completed. It's identified that helium at depth. We're now going to go and do the appraisal wells, which basically confirms it beyond any doubt. It gives us additional data. Reserves, this is really the number, how much helium we've got in the ground, which you could then sort of take to a bank and say, okay, we can substantiate the construction of a plant build and offtake agreements. So these are your numbers that are really beyond any doubt for how much helium you have present. Offtakes, for us, we're certainly be in the business of doing offtakes directly with the end users. So these would be companies like Panasonic, General Electric, SpaceX, all the big users of helium. And then production. So with any luck with our project here at Topaz in Minnesota, we think that should all go according to plan, then production of helium may be possible somewhere towards the end of next year, end of 2024, starting off with the gaseous helium production and then building up to that liquid helium, which takes more time to construct. But it's certainly our objective is to set up the state of Minnesota's first liquid helium facility. And considering that Minnesota is a large consumer of helium, because they've got the big semiconductor companies there, they've got the helium distribution companies as well, that we've got a very big local market right next to us. So look, I might leave it there, Anna, and I probably waffled on long enough, and perhaps give the opportunity for people to ask some questions if there are any.
Great job, Thomas. We do have some questions for you. Let's start with a question from Ray Mendoza. How is helium sold? Is it by the cubic meter? And you showed the potential market growth, but what does the supply look like? And can the supply keep up with that growth?
It hasn't kept up with it. So for 10 years, it hasn't been able to keep up. And that's just because things have been coming offline or natural gas has taken priority over the helium. So it's been very unreliable. Nobody likes being second fiddle to another commodity being a byproduct. So it's always the second one. But it's sold typically in long-term offtake agreements. And it would be sold by whatever the customer wants. So if it's liquid helium, you could be selling it by the liter. If it's gaseous helium, selling it by the 1,000 cubic feet.
And Harry Garner asks, what does the refining look like for helium? Is there any, or is it sold in one form and applied to all its applications?
Yeah, so the global one, the big one for bulk movements is liquid helium. And so for that one, for the refining of it, it's quite simple, actually. You pass the raw gas through a series of membranes that separates out most of the gases present. You then put it into a cryogenic chamber, a cold box. So basically you drop the temperature, increase the pressure. All the other gases freeze except for helium, which is a liquid. And then you just tap it, the valve, put that liquid helium into a 40-foot container, put it on a truck, and wave it goodbye. So it's a kind of, the only sort of consumable you've got is energy, which is why we're looking at the hydropower. But there's nothing in terms of chemicals or anything like that at all. It's actually very inert and benign, and dare I say it, boring.
Okay. I'm going to try to combine a question from Jim and Steve asking about production. So are you producing? Clarify that. Or is it just exploration at this point? And if it is exploration, there comes a time in every exploration company where it becomes de-risked. So where is that point for you?
For our project in Minnesota, the Topaz project, it's being drilled and flowed at 10.5% helium. So for us, that's a major de-risking event. You certainly see with other helium explorers out there, they haven't reached that stage yet. So that's the thing. And now really, it's the next one we're doing, the appraisal well is, I guess what you could say that it's getting to the stage where it's almost beyond any doubt, because that level of comfort that the gas is down there, so you can afford to put additional testing equipment down the hole and to take additional measurements, which cost money, which you typically wouldn't do unless you had that level of comfort that it was there. And then, so then after that, well, in February, so then we're talking perhaps March, April, the independent group that we use would then tell us, okay, this is how big it looks to be on taking into account all the data you have. And then that's when, bang, everything then starts to be production oriented. How much we're producing, is it gas or is it liquid? And how much, who should we be talking to for offtake agreements?
Dwayne wants you to talk about your cash flow. What's going out, what's coming in, and how are you covering any shortfall?
Yeah, sure. So we're exploration company, so we don't make any revenue. So we rely on our investment that comes in. We only just listed in August, so that was a couple of months ago. So we raised money there. We raised 3.1 million Canadian at the time of listing, and so really the money that's been raised has gone towards the seismic survey, the drill preparation, getting everything ready for that big milestone in February, which is the drilling.
And Anthony Fitzgerald wants to know, how does the size of the helium potential resource compare to others, for example, Royal Helium?
I couldn't speak about specifics with some of the other companies. I'm not quite sure how with Royals is. But I guess that for us, we'll know the size of it after the appraisal well. So in March, we should have a good idea of just how big it is. But based on what we're seeing in the seismic already, we're starting to get a bit of a good gut feel that it looks to be quite a large system. But it doesn't take that much gas. I guess that's the point I need to emphasize, is that if 10.5% of our raw gas, and if you compare it to, say, some of the other companies in North America who've got 0.5% helium, then to have the same resources them, we only have to find 1/20th the amount of gas because it's so high grade. I hope that answers the question.
Last question due to time. Paul Myers asks, how easily is industrial helium transported, and what does overseas competition look like?
It's transportation is the Achilles heel of helium, particularly in liquid form. It wants to leak. It really does. So with the containers, they can hold the liquid helium. So 40-foot containers can hold it for about 25 days. And then after that, it's going to start to breach. It just starts to give up and it starts to leak out. So for us being in the USA, 2 days on a truck and we're more or less anywhere in the contiguous states. So it's not an issue for us. But the overseas companies, most of it comes from Qatar. And the problems there is geopolitical. So the borders were closed the other year with the embargo. The other thing is, if you get a bottleneck somewhere, then you're over the 25 days. So I've certainly heard, speaking to end users, that to pay for 100% of helium and only get 80% is not abnormal.
Wow. Wow, what a world you're in. Great presentation, Thomas. Really interesting stuff. We would love to have you on in 2024 to keep updated with all your progress. Thank you for your time today.
No, thanks very much, Anna. I look forward to next time. Thank you.
All right, have a good day. Stay with us, everyone. We'll be right back.